back home and I tell people what I do for a living, and they think, well, nah, that figures. But over here, it's a big mystery. So I guess I've changed some. Sometimes I wonder if I've changed so much, my wife is even going to recognize me whenever it is I get back to her. And how I'll ever be able to tell her about days like today.
Crossing the return threshold refers to the moment when the hero encounters the ultimate boundary that stands between him and his final destination. In the default case, the hero has found his way back to the border between the extraordinary world and the ordinary world, and must figure out a way to get himself and the Boon across it. Campbell points out, the returning hero, to complete his adventure, must survive the impact of the world. That's what makes the canonical return threshold stage different from Refusal of the Return. It's not about mishandling the Boon or completing the heroic deed or being obstructed by the villain. It's about the challenge of readapting to a fundamentally different world just one more time. This rings true because life, experience, adversity changes your shape. And you won't fit back into the slot you used to fit in.
We made it! We did it!
The next question is, why? Why does the successful hero have to return to the ordinary world? I'll cut to the chase and say, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes the best outcome for the hero and the world means staying in the extraordinary world. Or, in some cases, it means moving on to the next world, a world even more extraordinary than the last. What success looks like depends on the story. Whatever the case, if the purpose of the journey is to transform the hero into someone who can wield an extraordinary boon to solve an impossible problem, then we have to see the hero make an attempt to get the boon where it needs to go. Or, if the problem has already been solved, we also need to see if the hero pays a price for it, which might mean getting stuck, sometimes forever, on the wrong side of the return threshold. And sometimes the hero has to make a conscious choice between solving the problem and going home. Whether the hero is trying to stay or go, a threshold guardian often appears to help or hinder him. In some cases, an agent of the extraordinary world might try to push him across the last boundary. Or an agent of the ordinary world might try to pull him across from the other side. There are a lot of moving parts to the return. As usual, it can be positive or negative, and the hero can succeed or fail. But here we have to split success into two more categories. The hero might succeed in handing off the boon, like a baton in a relay race, to someone in the ordinary world, while failing to cross the return threshold himself.
Hide the planet! Hide the planet! Shut up and get in the car!
Or the hero might have the boon in hand, only to find that it can't be brought back, like a dog carrying a big stick through a narrow door. Campbell asks, how render back into light world language the speech-defying pronouncements of the dark?
That's all everybody's got to do is just say so what?
And so the transformed hero can still return, but he has to leave the boon behind. Finally, the hero might be entirely defeated, unable to deliver the boon or cross the final threshold. But wait, there's one more critical consideration. If the forces arrayed against the hero haven't been entirely defeated, they might reappear as a final threshold guardian, blocking the gate. Or, and this can be much worse, the villain might somehow cross the return threshold with the hero. This allows some terrible power from the extraordinary world to run amok in the ordinary world, leaving the hero to confront it there. With so many factors in play, we won't have time to look at every possible combination, but we've got some great examples that should showcase each of these variables. We'll start with The Departed, which shows us a villain, Colin Sullivan, who betrays an ally who's standing between him and sneaking back into his normal life, crimes undetected. Sullivan has been groomed since childhood by mob boss Frank Costello to serve as a spy inside the Massachusetts State Police. He, in turn, spends a good chunk of the story trying to find out who the police have planted in Costello's crew. After a long game of cat and mouse, Sullivan's counterpart, undercover cop Billy Costigan, seems to gain the upper hand, but Sullivan receives a shocking rescue from without. It turns out that Costello had more than one mole inside the police force. Now stuck in the same boat, this unexpected ally, Berrigan, offers to join forces with Sullivan.
Costello was gonna sell us to the FBI. It's you and me now, you understand? We gotta take care of each other, you understand?
But Sullivan sees a better way to escape this extraordinary world of submarine warfare. He just needs one more body to complete the picture. As the last man standing, he has no trouble deceiving the final threshold guardian.
I attempted to subdue Trooper Berrigan, at which time he drew down on me, and I was able to squeeze off one shot and struck him in the head. At that time, I immediately checked the vitals on both Troopers Brown and Costigan and discovered that they had expired. I just want to go on record. I'm recommending William Costigan for the Medal of Merit.
And is, for the moment, able to return to the ordinary world with no one being the wiser. Now let's see what a partial success looks like, where the hero passes the boon onto someone else but doesn't make the return. In Pitch Black, space pilot Carolyn Fry has so far survived a crash landing on an alien planet filled with flying nocturnal predators. Not only has she survived, she's completed her transformation along the way. When the story opens, she's willing to sacrifice the helpless passengers in her care to save her own life. But by the end of the ordeal, she's evolved into someone willing to lay down her life for others.
Well then, just give me more life for them, I'll go back by myself.
Among the survivors is a dangerous convict, Riddick, who's even more cynical and pragmatic than she is.
There you go.
As the survivors make a final run for their repaired shuttlecraft, Riddick falls behind. Now Carolyn, who had just talked Riddick into helping her rescue the other survivors, goes back on her own to help him.
I said I'd die for them, not you. Let's move. Really? Come on. All right.
Her final words to Riddick, followed as they are by her unintended sacrifice, constitute the passing of the boon, transforming him in the process. His practiced stoicism slips for the first time in the story. He goes on to escape with the other survivors, crossing the return threshold, but she didn't get to make the return with them. On the flip side of that coin, we have the hero who returns from the extraordinary world without the boon. In Contact, Dr. Ellie Arroway, a logically minded atheist, travels through a wormhole using a machine built from instructions that were apparently provided by an outer space intelligence. On the other side of the wormhole, she enters a kind of virtual reality enclosure, and the entity she encounters takes the form of her father, who died when Ellie was young.
See, in all our searching, the only thing we've found that makes the emptiness bearable is each other.
What happens now?
Now, you go home.
But upon her return, she's told that nothing happened, that her travel pod dropped straight through the portal machine and out the bottom. She's returned without the boon she was hoping to bring to the world. Hard scientific evidence that we're not alone in the universe. Mr. Kitts plays the role of a final threshold guardian, an agent of the ordinary world who doesn't want to let anything from the extraordinary world intrude into his domain.
Wait a minute, let me get this straight. You admit that you have absolutely no physical evidence to back up your story.
Yes.
You admit that you very well may have hallucinated this whole thing.
Yes.
You admit that if you were in our position, you would respond with exactly the same degree of incredulity and skepticism.
Yes.
Then why don't you simply withdraw your testimony and concede that this journey to the center of the galaxy, in fact, never took place?
Because I can't.
But this failure to return with the intended boon has a paradoxical effect.
I had an experience. I can't prove it. I can't even explain it. But everything that I know as a human being, everything that I am tells me that it was real. I was given something wonderful, something that changed me forever. A vision of the universe that tells us undeniably how tiny and insignificant and how rare and precious we all are. A vision that tells us that we belong to something that is greater than ourselves, that we are not, that none of us are alone.
Ellie learns to recognize the power of experiences that we can't quantify or explain. So, what does total failure look like? Well, it looks like the original ending of The Descent. A year after the deaths of her husband and daughter, Sarah reconnects with her usual crew of adventurers for their annual trip. Here, they're knowingly misled by their thrill-seeking friend, Juno, into an unexplored system of caves. Caves that just so happen to be filled with albino monsters. It also turns out that Juno was having an affair with Sarah's husband, a betrayal she discovers during their ordeal. So when it comes down to just the two of them against the monsters, Sarah makes a dark decision to kneecap Juno and leave her to die fighting the monsters while she makes her escape. She crawls toward the light and emerges from the darkness. This is her return. We think she's home free, but it was all a horror movie fake-out, a dream. Sarah wakes up, still trapped in the pit where she fell after turning against Juno. Symbolically, she fell in the pit because she turned on Juno. Sarah doesn't confront her inner demons or her shadow the right way, and so she falls into the deepest pit of hell. Aliens deals with similar themes, but things turn out a little better for our heroine. It's also a great example of a stage occurring out of order while not looking like it's happening out of order. Ripley descends into hell, where she saves her surrogate daughter, Newt, and flees with the alien queen hot on her heels. When they get to the surface, it seems that their ride has left without them, but it turns out that their pilot, Bishop, just had to circle the block because it wasn't safe to park there. It looks like a magic flight and a rescue from without, and it's so intense and climactic that it feels like one, but these aren't the root notes of the chord. Essentially, what we're looking at is a refusal of the return that skips directly to crossing the return threshold, with the dropship roaring away from the nuclear meltdown. They make it back to the ordinary world, only to realize that the alien queen has hitched a ride on the dropship and crossed the return threshold with them. Now the real magic flight begins, and the rest of the stages of the journey unfold as they normally would.
Get away from her, you bitch!
In Aliens, the queen is an unwanted stowaway, but Apocalypto gives us a different take on an early return, accompanied by agents from the extraordinary world. After narrowly escaping death as a human sacrifice, Jaguar Paw flees from his Mayan captors back into the jungle he came from, where his wife and children are in desperate need of rescue. There's no threshold guardian, but to escape, he'll need to take a leap of faith over a towering waterfall. He survives the crossing, and now, having faced death in the underworld and re-emerged in the world of the living, he dares his pursuers to confront him on his home turf. The magic flight begins after the return, and the rest of the journey plays out in canonical order. Once the hero has crossed the return threshold, we see how things go for him there. If he's brought the boon across the threshold, now he has to apply it. We have to see the boon's effect on the ordinary world, or wherever the hero has delivered it. But even at this penultimate stage, things can still go wrong. He might misapply the boon, or it might be rejected by the people he's trying to help. If he's returned without the boon, that comes with its own complications. Or he might even realize that he's taken a wrong turn somewhere and delivered the right boon to the wrong place. Anything can happen. All of this is the subject of the next stage of the hero's journey. Master of the Two Worlds.